As we welcome our host, His Excellency President Paul Kagame and First Lady Jeannette Kagame, we kindly ask that we all rise for the national anthem and that we remain standing for the moment of silence. Remain standing for the moment of silence. You may be seated. Excellencies, we have live interpretation for you today. Please tune to channel 1 for English, channel 2 for French, channel 3 for Arabic, and channel 4 for Portuguese. Le canal 1 pour l'anglais, le canal 2 pour le français, le canal 3 pour l'arabe et le canal 4 pour le portugais.
Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika na Madamu, banyacyubahiro muterane hano, bashyitsi bahire, nshuti z'u Rwanda, Banyarwanda, Banyarwandakazi.
Mr. President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are now commemorating for the 30th time the genocide against the Tutsi. We are gathered here representing the international community and remembering that genocide killed more than 1 million people.
Call observed. My name is Sandrine Umutoni. I am the Minister of State for Youth and Arts. We are honored to welcome you all, Rwandans and friends of Rwanda, present here at home, across our country and all over the world, on this solemn day of our 30th commemoration, as we remember more than 1 million men, women, and children slain during the 100 days of the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. We now invite you to turn your attention to the illuminated tree. The tree's branches and foliage represent the protection that targeted families could not find during the genocide and that Rwandans today can count on. The upright trunk echoes the aspirations of the young generation, reinforced by the internal light and flowing sap of life within. The roots illustrate the memory of the past that we must preserve, our shared Rwandan culture on which we are all anchored and from which we draw inspiration and strength to reach for the sky as we build a brighter future.
Muri uyu mwanya mureke twakire Minisitiri w'Ububanyi n'Amahanga Dr. Biruta Vincent, arakurikirwa na Minisitiri w'Ubumwe bw'Abanyarwanda n'inshingano mboneragihugu Dr. Jean Damascene Bizimana. Excellence, Monsieur le Ministre, la parole est à vous.
Your Excellency Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda, and First Lady Jeannette Kagame, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Heads of Delegations, Heads of International Organizations, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you all to the national ceremony marking the 30th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. We extend our deepest gratitude for your presence here. Your solidarity in this moment of commemoration honors the memory of those we lost 30 years ago and reaffirms our collective commitment to ensure that such a tragedy doesn't happen again. I would like to recognize the leaders and friends as well as distinguished guests who are with us in this arena for our Kwibuka 30. Son Excellence, le Président de la République du Congo, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Sudan and Chairperson of the East African Community, Son Excellence, le Président de la République centrafricaine, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and the First Lady, Son Excellence, le Président de la République de Madagascar et Madame la Première Dame, Son Excellence, le Président de la République islamique de Mauritanie et Président en exercice de l'Union africaine, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Mauritius and the First Lady, Her Excellency, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, His Excellency, the President of the State of Israel, His Excellency, the President of the Czech Republic, the Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Lesotho, His Excellency, the former President of the United States of America, Mr. Bill Clinton, Son Excellence, Madame la Première Dame de la République de Guinée, Son Excellence, Madame la Vice-Présidente de la République du Bénin, Her Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda, Her Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Zambia, His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, Her Excellency, the Speaker of the Assembly of the Republic of Mozambique, the Honorable Speaker of the House of Commons of Canada, Son Excellence, Madame la Première Ministre, excusez-moi, de la République togolaise, Son Excellence, Monsieur le Chef du gouvernement du Royaume du Maroc, Son Excellence, Monsieur le Premier ministre de la République gabonaise, His Excellency, the former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Olusegun Obasanjo, His Excellency, the former President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Thabo Mbeki, His Excellency, the former President of the Federal Republic of Germany, Dr. Horst Köhler, Son Excellence l'ancien Président de la République française, M. Nicolas Sarkozy, His Excellency the former Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Mr. Haile Mariam Desalegn, Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président du Conseil européen, Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, the President of the African Development Bank, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Madame la Secrétaire Générale de la Francophonie, the Secretary General of the East African Community, the Director General of UNESCO. I would also like to recognize the countries that sent ministerial delegations as well as high-level representatives. Those are Algeria, Angola, Belgium, the Bahamas, Botswana, Canada, Chad, China, Comoros, Côte d'Ivoire, Denmark, Djibouti, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea, Eswatini, France, Guinea, India, the Republic of Korea, Mali, Malawi, the Netherlands, Qatar, Sao Tome and Principe, Serbia, Somalia, Sudan, Sweden, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, and the United Kingdom. Thank you for standing with Rwanda today, for remembering with us, and for your continued support as we take this journey forward. Murakoze, je vous remercie. Thank you.
Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, ba nyakubahwa bakuru b'ibihugu na za guverinoma n'imiryango mpuzamahanga,
states and international organizations, dear dignitaries who came here to be with us in these times, I thank you for this opportunity for me to give you a brief summary of what characterized the genocide against Tutsis as we commemorate for the 30th time. I will focus on the international community's role that enabled the genocide. And today we still think there's need for change to prevent genocide internationally. And I will continue in French. We commemorate the extermination of more than 1 million Tutsis that states could have prevented. The United Nations recognized this horrible number in the Resolution 2150 of 16 April 2014, mentioning 3 elements here, saying there are clear proofs that acts of genocide were committed against the Tutsi group. More than 1 million people were killed in that genocide. And we take note of that, and we are concerned given all forms of genocide. July 7th, 2000, an inquiry commission by the African Union under His Excellency Ketumile Masire, former president of Botswana, published his report called A Genocide That Could Have Been Prevented. This report clarifies the African Union's responsibility. It says this: genocide that happened in Rwanda could have been prevented by those from the international community who were in position and who had the means to do so. However, those did not have the will and did not have the means, end of quote. December 15, 1999, a United Nations Commission under Mr. Ingvar Carlsson, former Prime Minister of Sweden, published a similar report concluding like this. It's the United Nations as a system, they bear the responsibility to not have known how to prevent or to end the genocide in Rwanda. Your Excellencies, before the genocide against Tutsis in 1994, the United Nations and its member states had all necessary information to act on time. August 11th, 1993, the United Nations Human Rights Commission published a report that concluded like this: the Tutsi population is targeted by large-scale massacres by the Rwandan armed forces, administrative authorities, and militia. The Tutsi victims are the majority of those targeted, and they are targeted just because of their ethnic group. These killings are clearly a genocide. That was 8 months before the genocide. On May 18th, 1994, a delegation of the genocidal government with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jerome Chamumaka, and the extremist party CDR leader, Jean Bosco Barayagwiza, attended the Security Council meeting. They participated in debates, distorting facts, and imputing responsibilities to the Rwandan Patriotic Front, accusing them of having committed a genocide against Hutus. The consequence was that in the 918 resolution voted on the same day, the use of the term genocide was refused. One will have to wait until June 8, 1994 for the United Nations to use that word timidly, speaking of acts of genocide. And in the meantime, Zaire, today's Democratic Republic of Congo, was allowing the genocidal government to buy weapons via different states and dealers. On June 22, 1994, the United Nations, under France's pressure, authorized the Turquoise Operation, which helps genociders to move and settle in Zaire. In July 1994, the genocidaires were defeated by the Rwandan Patriotic Front. On October 30th, 1994, those genociders formed a government with the president and the prime minister who have committed the genocide, masterminded the genocide. There was General Bizimungu, who was chief of staff of the genocidal army in the same government. The Minister of Defense became Colonel Athanase Gasake, who headed, before the genocide and during the genocide, he headed what they call civil defense force that used to distribute weapons to militia. His deputy became Colonel Wagosora, who is the mastermind of the genocide. And on April 3rd, 1995, they created a political party that they called Rassemblement pour la Démocratie, RDR, with an ethnicist and genocide-denying ideology. The genocidal administration reconstituted in Zaire, the FDLR, who are active today in DRC, and to conduct an inquiry about the facts, arrest and extradite genocide fugitives who are on their territory, including FDLR leaders. And 3, the Security Council condemns the denial of that genocide.
On
January 10, 2005, during its 23rd Summit of Heads of State held in Libreville, in Gabon, the African Union voted a resolution which is identical to that one about the FDLR. On May 14, 2008 and December 8, 2010, the European Union adopted similar resolutions, which today remain unapplied. They are not applied even today. Germany took an important act when they arrested and prosecuted and sentencing in 2015 two politicians of from the FDLR, including Nias Munyashaka and Straton Musoni. The latter was returned to Rwanda in 2022 at the end of after having served his sentence, and he lives peacefully in his native country. Munyashaka died in a German prison in 2019. Belgium sent to Rwanda in 2018 Major Bernard Ntuyahaga after the end of his 20-year sentence for genocide. He had been found guilty of murder, the murder of the 10 Belgian blue helmets, Belgian UN forces during the genocide. The states still hesitate to send genocide suspects, but they should learn from those examples. Having said that, how will Rwandans understand the fact that Colonel Aloys Simba's body, who was found guilty of genocide by the ICTR and sentenced to 25 years, was transferred secretly to the United States in July 30th, 2023. How will understand that FDLR elements who assassinated 8 Western tourists in Rwindi National Park in Uganda on March 1st, 1999, were arrested later on by Rwandan judicial system and extradited to the United States, but they were later on sent to live freely in Australia without any trial. In November 1994, during debates at the UN about the creation of the ICTR, Ambassador Karol Kovander, representing the Czech Republic at the Security Council, had underlined the urgent priority to send a force at that time to neutralize genociders and to return them to Rwanda. He was not heard. 30 years later, the FDLR crimes are still going on today. Today, we see similar international indifference similar to that prevailed in Rwanda between 1990 and 1994. Are we looking for another million of dead people to act? This would be a shame that this commemoration should help and is calling to stop. I thank you, Your Excellencies.
Monsieur le Ministre, merci pour ces quelques mots qui relatent les étapes de notre histoire. And now, Excellencies, distinguished guests,
Excellence,
we will hear the first of 3 musical interludes of songs originally created for past commemoration ceremonies. Today, those
Uga
Abahanzi barakoze. Excellencies, distinguished guests, we will now hear from Louise Ayinkamiye, a survivor who was living in Nyange in the western province of Rwanda when the genocide started. Mrs. Louise will be with us momentarily. Thank you.
Murakoze. Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Ayinkamiye Marie Louise.
Mr. President, my name is Louise Ayinkamiye from the Western Province in Ngororero District, Nyange village. That what is going to be said, what I'm going to say, was experienced by a 10-year-old. I was very young. I was 5. A lot of things that happened to me, I didn't understand them. I understood them later. We were 6 siblings, 6 girls, 6 boys, but 3 girls, 3 boys. We lived a normal life of an ordinary family. But the only difference was that we were Tutsi by ethnicity, and therefore we lived in constant insecurity. In the Kibirira district, between 10 and 15, more than 350 people in my neighborhood were killed, including my family. So I started feeling that maybe I don't have a right to live. Every night they would come, every night they shout at our door, and they would hear whistles. And then our parents would try and take us by the back door to the church or to a school, a classroom, somewhere to hide. I remember that even when I was at school, as a school girl, we were 2 Tutsis at that time, 2 surviving Tutsis. And the teacher would say, Tutsis, stand up. And the Tutsis would stand up, we would stand up. And I couldn't understand that. Because they would point fingers at us. And were excluded. It's like we were not part of the community. We were ashamed because we were fingered. Now, on the 7th, we were at home. It was announced that President Habyarimana had died, but of course I was too young to understand what that meant. He died, it's sad, but I could see that other people were very frightened. There was a panic. The parents, the children, By that time, we were 5 children at home.
na papa wacu mama wacu we yari yaragiye
Mom and Dad.
yari yagiye igitaramo kure mu
I know,
Sengeneza
Dad
wari
was not
urwaye
there because he had gone to visit to
Genocide
Gitarama to
itangira
visit
atari mu
a
rugo.
relative who was ill.
byaje
So
kumuviramo amahirwe
actually,
yo
the
kurokoka
genocide
abitwakiye
started
i Kabgayi
without him.
Musaza wanjye mukuru w'imfura
He couldn't leave Kabgayi where
yamenye
he'd
ibirimo
gone to see his
bitegurwa
relative,
agenda n'amaguru
and that's how he
yihuta
survived.
igitarama n'amaguru mu ijoro
And
agerayo
the rest of us, the rest of my
nawe
family
byamufashije
died.
kuza kuzarokokerayo
There was also
nari mfite mukuru
another
wanjye wundi
sibling
mukuru
who had
ntabwo yabaga mu
traveled.
rugo
He also
yari yaragiye kwiha
survived.
imana aba ahantu
And we
bita
had
Mukarange
an aunt who
uwo
was
munsi wacu mu
a
rugo ku
nun
itariki
in
umunani
a convent in Mukarange. She also
mu ijoro ryo
survived.
ku itariki 7 rishyira umunani
But
twari dufite
on the
umuryango
7th
twari duturanye wabaga
on the 7th
ahitwaga
of
ibweramana
April, we had another relatives, other
iryo joro baraye bawishe wari umuryango mugari
are
cyane
on another hill
Hanyuma,
across ours.
nkangutse
There
mbona iwacu
were
hateraniye
a
abantu
lot of
benshi.
people in that family, many
ndikanga
members of
barambwira
that
bati
family
kwanda ku bana bapfuye
that we knew. They
mu
were all
gitondo papa
decimated.
abyuka abwira mukuru wanjye
So
tujyana murumuna wawe na musaza wawe mutoya mujye ku
my
kiliziya
sister said,
natwe nimugoroba turaza kubasangayo
our
ubwo yari
older
kiliziya ya
sister,
Nyange paruwasi ya Nyange
she said to
niho bari
us
barimo
young people, she
kutwohereza
said, go to the church of Nyange,
njyewe nahise
to
mbabwira ndababwira ngo mwanyemereye
the
njyewe
parish church.
nkajya kwa marene wanjye
I
nari
said,
mfite
"But
umubyeyi wa batisimu
why don't I go to
nari maze
my
iminsi mikeya
godmother?
mbatijwe
Because I had just been
numvaga ari ahantu hari
baptized
ntabwo ari uko
a
nari
short
nzi ko
while
ari
ago,
aharokokera
and I had godmother.
hanyuma
And I said,
ndababwira ntibaritse
if
akaba
I
ariho
could go to my
nigiye
godmother,
kuko n'ubundi
I
ku
think I will
kiliziya atari
survive.
amakiriro yari amaguru
Because the
akindi kujyayo
church, there is no use in
barambwira
going
bati
to the
se
churches
n'ubundi ntabwo
because
tuzi
people
aho
have
umuntu
been
azakirira nibakureke
massacred in
wigendere
churches. So mother said, well,
navuye
in
mu
any
rugo
case,
nzamukana na mukuru
one
wanjye
choice
n'umusaza
we
wanjye
have. You go
mutoya
wherever you
abandi
think you
basaza
should
banjye
go. So I
bakuru
did.
babiri bari mu rugo bari bagiye kwahura amatungo
Two of my brothers
hanyuma tugeze ahantu
were
twagombaga
outside. They were
gutandukanira
herding the
bagakomeza
cattle.
bajya ku kiliziya
They were tending the cattle,
nanjye
and those
ngakomereza aho
went
hitwaga
their own
ingobagoba nari
way.
ngiye kwihisha
I also went my
mukuru
way,
wanjye arandeba
and my sister saw me
arambwira ati ngaho
going,
ugenda
and she said, well,
imana nikugirira neza
go.
tugashobora kurokoka tuzongera tubonane
go, if
ko
we
ntabwo
survive,
byashobotse
we'll meet
mukuru wanjye
again.
ntabwo nongeye kumubona ukundi
But she died. I never saw her again.
yakomereje ku kiliziya na musaza wanjye mutoya
So I walked to the
njyewe
church
nkomereza mu muryango
with
nari
my younger
ngiyemo
brother, was with me, my younger
Mbere yuko
brother, and we
nkomeza
went to
ubuzima
that
nabayemo
family
nari
of my
ngiye
godmothers.
kamvuge gatoya
Let me just
urugendo
come back and
rw'abarigiye ku
explain
kiliziya nubwo
what
ntari ndi ariko
happened to
aho nari
those
ndi
who went
makuru nayo
wide in
namenyaga
the church.
ndetse na nyuma
I wasn't
dukomeza
there,
gukurikirana kugira ngo
but we're told
turebe
the
ko hari
story
umuntu yaba yararokoye
to see
nubwo
if anybody
bitadukundiraga
had
kenshi
survived.
twumvaga amakuru mabi y'urupfu bapfuye
But in fact, all we had
nashoboye
was
kumenya ko
their
bageze
death.
ku
So and so
kiliziya
died.
nimugoroba
So and so died. This
umunsi
way.
ukurikiye mukuru wanjye bari bashonje ajyana
So,
agasaza kanjye
I
gatoya bajya mu
heard
kiri
that
bajya mu
my
babikira
sister took my
twari tuziranye kuko
younger, who had a
umuryango
baby
wabo
brother,
niwo mukuru wanjye yaragiye
who was very sick,
kwihamo imana
or rather very hungry.
bagenda nk'abagiye
So they
gusaba
said,
ibyo
well, we're
kurya
going to the convent. We have
hanyuma mukuru wanjye arya urwara agasaza
elder sister
kanjye
is there, or
ngo
aunt is there.
katamukurikira bavayo
Let's go. So they
agasaza
went.
kanjye kaje kurokoka
the little
ni
boy-
amakuru yo yambwiye nyine uko
The little
byagenze
boy,
kugira ngo
when
asigare mu
they had given
babikira
him the food that
mukuru
he
wanjye
needed,
yasubiye ku
refused to
kiliziya
go back
ngo
to the
yari
church
arimo
with my
papa wanjye
sister. So my sister went,
basaza
because
banjye
there were the
babiri
others, the
papa
other
yagerageje
relatives.
kubashyira mu miryango ngo babahishe ariko
And in fact,
byakunda bahita babazana ku kiliziya nabo
my father
aho
on his side
umugambi wo
had also
kubicira wari
arranged for
uteganyirijwe
hiding places for the young,
Hanyuma,
for the children, so that they
babaye mu
don't all die
kiliziya
together.
bagerageza kwirwanaho ko bashoye
So anyway, those who were in the church
ntibyakunda kubera ko ku itariki 16
tried
z'ukwezi
to
kwa kane
fight off the attackers who were
nibwo
attacking
padiri
the church,
seromba
but
wari uyoboye kiliziya ya
they
nyange
resisted for a long time. But the
yatanze
parish
uburenganzira
priest
bwo
of
gusenya kiliziya
Father
yose kugira ngo
Seromba,
bizere neza ko abatutsi bose bari bahungiyemo
himself
barangiye
decided that they should
kwicwa
destroy the church instead, so that all the
Kiliziya
Tutsis are
barayihiritse,
killed, because it's very difficult to kill them
ubumuga
one by
bacu
one.
bose burangirira aho ngaho
So they destroyed the church, and that was the end of my family. You just
ubu ni njye wari
fell
ukomeje kubaho
over them.
ko nabitekerezaga
So I thought I was the only survivor.
nari naragiye
I
mu
was,
muryango
as I
kwa marene
explained, that I had gone to
yari
my
umugabo n'umugore
godmother's house.
umugore
She and
wahigwaga
her husband.
umugabo adahigwa
Well, the thing is that
umugabo yari umwarimu
the
umugore ari umugerefiye
the
w'urukiko
husband
bari abantu
was
bakomeye
a teacher, the wife
hanyuma akaba
was
umusozi
a court
utari uri
clerk.
hafi
very
y'iwacu hamwe hari
important
muri
people,
ngobagoba
relatively.
ahandi iwacu ari i murambi
And one was from,
Jyewe
they were
nari
not from
umwana
the
muto
same
ku myaka
area,
cumi
but
n'umwe.
they were not,
Ntabwo
their origin,
abantu
places
benshi
of
baho
origin
bari
was not
banzi.
very far. But
Ariko
anyway, I
kubera ko urwo
wasn't,
rugo rwari rurimo uwo mubyeyi
I was
hahoraga ibitero buri
fine
munsi.
at that time.
bazaga kuhatera
at her house.
bakadusohora twese tugahagarara
But
hanze
who also persecuted
ariko ngera
them
muri
who
urwo rugo
come and
umugabo
throw us out
nyir'urugo
and
yarambwiye
beat us up.
arabirebye
But
barabibona ko
by the way, I
mpahungiye
forgot to say that the husband of
arambwira
my
ati
godmother's,
nihagira umuntu ukubaza uwo uri we ujye uvuga ko
he
uri
said
umwana
to
wawe
me,
yambwiye
when
izina
they
rya
ask
mukuru
you
we wabaga
who
i
you
kigali
are,
ati ujye umubabwira ko waje
say
mu
you are
kiruhuko
the
hano muri
daughter
vakansi
of so and so
hanyuma
who is
ndabifata
on holiday
cyakora
here.
ntawabimbajije
So,
baradusohoraga tugahagarara
okay, I
hanze
said fine.
ku
So,
mugaragaro
but,
habura ibitero
they will come,
byinshi
the attackers will come,
n'imihoro
with the
intwaro zose
machetes
bakoreshaga
and swords
umutima
and
ukansimbuka
all
bakaduhagarika
sorts of
hanze twese ariko
weapons
nareba amasura nkabona ntawe nzi
and spears
bakinjira mu
and
rugo
so on. And they will come,
bagasahura ibintu
attack the
byose
house, take
bakabimena
everything, break what they
bashakamo
can take,
umudamu
saying that they are looking
bakamubura
for
barangiza bagasohoka bakagenda
my godmother who
urwo
was
rugo
hiding from
ntabwo
them
mfataho nk'intangarugero
because
bagerageje guhisha umubyeyi wabo mu buryo bwose bushoboka
they did what
iyo
they
bamenyaga
could
ko ibitero biri buze bararaga ijoro ryose bamugenza
protect me.
bakamubitsa ahantu hanyuma bwacya byagenda
Sometimes they
bakongera
spend the whole
bakamugarura
night
yaba ari mu rugo bakirirwa mu rugo
taking
aho ngaho bose
those who
abasore
had run
n'inkumi
to them,
bagumagaho mu rugo
hiding them in the bushes, then having
nta
to move
kindi
them to another
cyabaga muri
place
urwo
and
rugo
so on. And
ubwo buzima
they
twabubayemo
tried their best
hanyuma igihe
because
kimwe barambwira
they
bati
too
ejo
had
hazaza ibitero
been,
by'iwanyu
had
by'ubugabo
been
bitanga umutsima
attacked
weraga
and the
ibitero
food
by'iwacu
was, there was no
baravuga bati
food.
nawe uyu munsi
It
bari
was
kubona
horrible. Anyway,
mu mwana
a
twari mu
day
kigero
came
kimwe
when somebody
bamubyutsa
came and
nijoro
said,
mu
now
saa
this is
kumi
your day. I don't think
bamubwira
we can
ahantu
hide you
njyana
anymore.
twagenze urugendo
So
nk'amasaha nk'abiri
somebody came and
n'amaguru
said, let me go and hide
hanyuma
her.
tugeze mu nzira
So
butangiye gucya duhura
I
n'uwo
went away
mubyeyi
with
nari
that
ngiyeho
person.
dusanga
They said we have to
umubyeyi
go
yikoreye
and
amaboko ati abana banjye nanjye
hide
bamaze
that
kubica
person to that house, to the
ajyane
house over there. That will be
turakata
probably
dusubira inyuma
safer. But we went to
twongera
that
dukora
house,
urugendo
and
rusubira mu rugo
the woman
nageze
had
mu
lost
rugo
her husband and her children
bisikana
as well. She
n'ibitero
was the only
bivuye
survivor.
gusaka mu rugo
So we
bisohoka
left
nanjye
that
nigerera
place.
mu yandi
We had to
marembo
try to hide somewhere else. And we met
ibyo
another
bitero by'uwo
group
munsi
of
mbikira gutyo
interahamwe, but I managed to
ubuzima
hide
tubamo tubumaramo
from them.
amezi agera kuri abiri kwa kane
And
kwa gatanu
I continue to find hiding places.
mu kwezi kwa gatandatu
So that lasted the whole month of
Ntekereza ko
April,
aribwo
and then
twatangiye
May,
kumva
and then we were at the beginning of June. So the rumor started to run around that now the Inhotanyi, RPF, have come. And Interahamwe are starting to run. But before running, they killed whoever they couldn't kill. My godmother, who was a Tutsi, and her husband was a Tutsi, the husband had tried his best to protect us and hide his wife and so on. But in the end, it was very difficult. It was very difficult. The second family that I had tried to hide with had to leave the house. So they walked to a place called Rufungo, and they found a roadblock. You know, those roadblocks, man. So anyway, we went to a house. We found a house to hide where there was nobody except the children, who had managed to hide.
umukobwa baravugana aramubwira ati
And then these children said, what do I do? What do I do to find food? So somebody said, well, why don't you go to the convent? There's a convent over there. So I went to the convent. When I got to the convent, I found that we found a car by the convent. Somebody put us in the car, in a pickup, and covered us with a tarpaulin. and then drove us away, and he kept saying that this is just his luggage, his goods. These are just his goods in the car. So I went to a place. I reached the barrier. I didn't know whether the people I was with were Hutus or Tutsis. I didn't know who they were. I was just walking away. And none of my family were there. Even my brother, who eventually survived, I didn't know where he was. So I was alone with these people. So I sat down. I moved aside from the group. I sat down on a stone and I started crying. And a woman came by and she said, "Stop crying. Why are you crying?" He said, "Well, I don't know where to go. I have nobody." She said, "Don't worry. Even though these people have nobody, just like you, just walk. Just go on. Just try to run away. Don't give up." So I did, and eventually we just sort of moved to a place following others, and we found a place where we could hide rather. But they said, "Don't go further. There are groups of Interahamwe who are on rampage over there, and they're killing all the survivors." So somebody said, "Okay, let's stay here." And then staying here, I started being afraid because I could hear the shouts. And then, in any case, I said, "How can I stay here? I don't know anybody. These people are strangers. I'm sure all my family is dead." But anyway, I wasn't. Somebody said, "Well, stay here. Stay. You can't go anywhere." Anyway, eventually we found a car. Somebody came, took us in a car. It was a pickup, but we were not covered. They said, "Just go on. Just go on." So they dropped us somewhere. And then they said, "Just walk. So as we walked past that, we saw there were trucks and they were explaining that these are in Hotanyi, these are RPF, because we were in a turquoise zone, and there had been an agreement for RPF to be allowed to pick up the refugees who were in that zone. So here I thank you, Mr. President, because this is how we were saved. Anyway, they took us somewhere, on a safe place, and eventually I heard that my mother had survived, that one of my brothers had survived, that one of the elder brothers had joined the RPF, and he was also there. He was survived. Eventually, well, let me just conclude that we were rescued, we were helped. I went back to school. I went to university as well. Even the university degree, I got it myself. I paid for myself. So that's my life. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And we want to promise that we survivors, we are strong. We'll build the country. We'll do it together. Thank you very much. Good commemoration.
Louise Komera, Turihu. Thank you for your grace.
Well, thank you for your testimony.
Excellencies, honorable guests, nous allons à présent assister à une représentation artistique intitulée The Gift of Time, qui reprend en 3 temps l'histoire de notre pays.
Merci beaucoup.
Ce morceau de danse contemporaine regroupe des jeunes artistes provenant de différentes troupes de danse de notre capitale. Sous la direction de M. Wesley Ruzibiza et avec la collaboration.
We now hear another song performance. Hervé Twahirwa, Samuel Kamanzi, Cedric Mizero, Sisi Uera, who are going to tell in artistic form what happened during the genocide and what happened after the genocide and what is happening now, where our generations are now doing well with no fear, no terror. Thank you.
Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, tugiye gukurikirana igihangano cya Ruzibiza Wesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we're now going to hear young people tell the story of the genocide, how it started, how it continued, how we moved like blindfolded people into a genocide. But tomorrow, the future, the immediate future, is bright. And this is what these people are going to tell in their art form.
Nous sommes ici, we are here because we survived, even though we lost our loved ones. But we also remember that even the young ones were killed. But we're here to honor you because we've survived. Please receive our offer, our performance. Please remember us as we are struggling and striving to live. It was almost 100 days. This lasted for about 100 days. Only tears and darkness. Breathe. Be at rest. Stand up. Stay strong.
gukomeza gutera imbere.
Slowly, we've been trying to move forward together with others, trying to rebuild our nation.
ntituzatatira igihango dufitanye kivi cyanyu tuzacyusa.
We remember. We remember. We remember. Nous nous souvenons. Nous nous souvenons. Nous nous souvenons. Turibuka. Turibuka. Turibuka.
Abahanzi barakoze. Nous allons
Excellence,
Your Excellency Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, heads of states, governments, and delegations. Excellencies, the First Ladies, Excellencies, heads of international and regional organizations, distinguished guests, dear brothers and sisters, Rwandans, ladies and gentlemen. It's always a powerful moment with 1,001 intense emotions, deep questions, and feelings of admirations each time we set foot on this country that emerged from its ashes. The genocide against Tutsis that we commemorate for the 30th time today means all of that to me. 30 years ago, horror struck Rwanda. Murderous forces fueled by ethnic ideologies spread hatred, a speech of hatred among the population of this beautiful country, known for its mild climate and the greenery on its hills. And as a result, within 3 months, more than 1 million Tutsis were decimated during unbelievably horrible conditions, inhumane conditions. And after that horrible catastrophe, tragedy, we are still questioning, asking questions, asking ourselves even about the absurdity and the craziness that our humanity has manifested. How and why? For what purpose? What thirst do you quench by exterminating others? What will be able to say or do today? First, to accomplish our duty to remember. There has to be remembrance. You have to remember so you don't forget. You have to also remember to understand the depth of these wounds inflicted on this nation. And you need to remember to measure the bestiality manifested by men that led them to destroy human dignity with intra-family crimes and other crimes committed in broad daylight, and sometimes in religious sites, and where roles were reversed people became accomplices to unacceptable, horrible acts that were generalized. One has to remember to appreciate and measure the pride that Rwanda feels today since that horrible day. And those horrors that seemed to have irreversibly annihilated Rwanda, the country has risen up with people being equal and all structured around a same goal to develop collectively. Let's revisit the journey that you have walked. I'm talking about reconciliation of hearts and spirits and consciences. And this was done thanks to judicial resources and mechanisms and approaches based on African wisdom. It was enlightened by political will characterized by determination to attain the goal as you allowed Rwanda to rebound, to bounce back, and move towards the future. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President Paul Kagame, within an African environment and an international environment full of conflicts based on tribalism, racism, religious divide, cultural, economic, or even civilizational, Rwanda, very humbly, offers a model which resonates positively beyond the borders of Africa and goes into a universalist typology. You should be proud of that, dear brothers and sisters of Rwanda. This is also clarified and exemplified by methodical reconstruction of a social order within the reconciliation setting. So how not to honor the genius of the Rwandan people that has been able, under exemplary leadership at all levels, to transcend all those fragilities of a human being. And lastly, as I analyze this, we need to remember to renew our oath for never again. Never again. This is also an oath to be faithful and to be empathetic and to be in solidarity in terms of links among the humanity of all people. The African Union and all the nations that have been impacted by this horrible tragedy against Tutsis did not, like other international actors, did not find appropriate responses. This is a historical reminder, and we've been reminded of that even a few moments ago. Nobody, I say nobody, not even the African Union, cannot deny its inaction vis-à-vis a preventable genocide. Let's be courageous to acknowledge that and to admit that as well. It's not too high a price if you look at the victims and their descendants. Africa rejects the criminal genocide ideology, which is often falsely justified, promoting hatred, supremacy, and all forms of exclusion and denial of the other. So may I announce within this context to nominate, as we commemorate for the 30th time, nominate a special envoy for our multiform action against the genocide. And I name Mr. Adama Dieng, who worked for a long time in the ICTR in Arusha about the genocide against the Tutsis and worked elsewhere within the United Nations on similar problems. Your Excellencies, the 30th commemoration of the genocide against Tutsis resonates in our hearts and reminds us to surpass ourselves and transcend ourselves higher and higher, higher than the heights of the 1,000 hills that characterize this country, higher than this blossoming tree, higher in terms of human values of humanism, with inclusive prosperity and collective happiness and shared happiness. May the living remain faithful to this oath. May the dead who live in our conscience rest in peace, in eternal peace. I thank you for your attention.
Excellence, Monsieur Moussa.
Your Excellency, Mr. Moussa Faki Mahamat, thank you for being here with us. Now I invite His Excellency Charles Michel, President of the European Council, to give his remarks. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Monsieur le Président de la
Mr. President, the President of the Republic, Paul Kagame, First Lady Janet Kagame, Excellencies, Heads of States and Governments, ladies and gentlemen. Silence. Silence is the respect. Silence means reflection, and silence is also commemoration in communion about the genocide against Tutsis. We hear the noise
qui remonte d'il y a 30 ans. Et j'ai, en me tenant devant vous, en mémoire ce témoignage d'un enfant. Il avait à l'époque l'âge de mes enfants. Il s'appelle Révérien. Et il décrit sa maman du retour du marché en avril 1994, qui lui dit sa peur, qui lui dit qu'il faut prier, parce que la fin approche. La veille,
because the end was near, because neighbors had come home and they had stolen the cattle and property, and they were screaming from the other side of the village with the screamings because the beginning of the massacre had begun. And the morning could be heard, the screaming by those killers who had been propagating violence and hatred like poison. And that noise and the screaming is also screamed by victims who were mutilated. And those victims include a father, a mother, a child. And those screams could be heard from a neighbor's house, from classrooms, schools, churches, at a roadblock, on a road. That noise is also that scream by that person who was being murdered, calling for help, calling for dignity and life. And then the noise became less and less as the machete. Silence. Silence of those who do not want to see, those who do not want to hear. And that hatred that sharpened the weapons, who don't want to see large-scale massacres that had begun, the international community that was inactive as part of cowardness. And I'm here today before you humbly. I'm Belgian, I'm European, and here we are 30 years later, and I know what my continent, Europe, owes yours, Africa. I know the history with those roots, that greatness. I also know history with that shame. I know their responsibilities. And it's within the spirit that the Belgian government in 2000 sought forgiveness. The duty to remember is, first of all, the duty to remember, to not forget, and to learn from the mistakes, and to try to start a world that is more enlightened. The European continent knows that the past has also been murderous and suffered by the two world wars that affected the whole world, but also this Shoah, the industrial extermination, the systematic extermination of the Jewish people. And the European continent decided to pursue justice, forgiveness, and reconciliation, to try and build a positive project that looked towards the future. Like Rwanda, a people that opted for justice, forgiveness, reconciliation, and turned towards education, health, infrastructure, technology. This is a journey of development and resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you 30 years later, this is 2024, in a world which is in disorder. It's chaotic. A world faced with shocks of another generation. Conflicts with nature that is a challenge to humanity. Even though we have this technology, artificial intelligence, these computers, powerful computers, there's evolution, but there is a world based on the rules that are a paradox today. Human intelligence that produces a lot of unimaginable technologies a few years ago. At the same time, it's a world with many injustices, inequalities, discrimination, and conflicts. As we talk about different continents, in this chaotic world, we think that human dignity, the fight against discrimination, that is against that UN Charter, should be paid attention to. We condemn strongly the terrorist act by Hamas in Gaza, and we demand unconditional release of the hostages. We also, within the European Council, that there be humanitarian access and a ceasefire, and to respect the International Court of Justice's decisions. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on this land of 1,000 hills, this green land, 30 years ago, the absolute horror struck. personal suffering, a lot of personal suffering and strategy. But the choice was that of reconciliation, reconstruction, slowly, consistently, word after word, and forgiveness to rebuild, to repair the social fabric that based on dignity on behalf of each human being, reconciliation between neighbors, communities, and as a country. That requires courage and strong will. It's also the condition to reach this tree of light that represents hope everywhere. Carry this light of dignity, and that's a commitment that we need to take together. And that's my wish, that we follow this path. Thank you for your attention.
abashyitsi bacu
We thank our guests who came here to comfort us in this moment and for their remarks. Now, Rwanda, this beautiful country, even though there's been a lot of tears and pain, they've gone through all that, but we're still alive. Even though we thought that night was going to go on forever, we're here, we're alive, and we are rebuilding our lives. Rwanda, you've lost your sons and daughters. They will never come back, but they live in our hearts, that we bring here, and we honor them as we rebuild. Those orphans and widows have recovered hope.
Abahanzi barakoze. Banacyubahiro, bashyitsi bahire, tugeze mu mwanya wo kwakira ijambo nyamukuru ry'uyu munsi. Your Excellency, President Paul Kagame, we now invite you to deliver your keynote message.
Dear friends, Excellencies, heads of state and government, and first ladies, former heads of state and government, and former first ladies, and heads of delegations. Special guests, Banyarwanda mwese. Abanyarwanda ndi busabe ko munyihanganira nkako. Today, our hearts are filled with grief and gratitude in equal measure. We remember our dead and are also grateful for what Rwanda has become. To the survivors among us, we are in your debt. We asked you to do the impossible by carrying the burden of reconciliation on your shoulders, and you continue to do so, continue to do the impossible for our nation every single day, and we thank you. As the years pass, the descendants of survivors increasingly struggle with the quiet loneliness of longing for relatives they never met or never even got the chance to be born. Today, we are thinking of you as well. Our tears flow inward, but we carry on as a family. Countless Rwandans also resisted the call to genocide. Some paid the ultimate price for that courage, and we honor their memory. Our journey has been long and tough. Rwanda was completely humbled by the magnitude of our loss. And the lessons we learned are engraved in blood. But the tremendous progress of our country is plain to see, and it is a result of the choices we made together to resurrect our nation. The foundation of everything is unity. That was the first choice, to believe in the idea of a reunited Rwanda and live accordingly. The second choice was to reverse the arrow of accountability, which used to point outwards beyond our borders. Now, we are accountable to each other, above all. Most importantly, we chose to think beyond the horizon of tragedy and become a people with a future. Today, we also feel a particular gratitude to all the friends and representatives here with us from around the world. We are deeply honored by your presence alongside us on this very heavy day. The contributions you have made to Rwanda's rebirth are enormous and have helped us to stand where we are now. I want to recognize a few while also asking for forgiveness for not being all who deserve it. For example, Uganda, which carried the burden of Rwanda's internal problems for so many years and was even blamed for that. The leadership and the people of Ethiopia and Eritrea helped us in starting to rebuild at that time. In fact, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who is here, even served as a young peacekeeper in the immediate aftermath of the genocide. There is Kenya, Burundi, the Democratic Republic of Congo hosted large numbers of Rwandan refugees and gave them a home. Tanzania as well, and also played a unique role at many critical points, including hosting and facilitating the Arusha peace process, in rebuilding, and more. Many of the countries represented here today also sent their sons and daughters to serve as peacekeepers in Rwanda. Those soldiers did not fail Rwanda. It was the international community which failed all of us, whether from contempt or cowardice. Among those here with us today, I salute the widow and daughter of the late Captain Mbaye Diagne of Senegal, who died a hero as he rescued many Rwandans from death. At the United Nations Security Council in 1994, moral clarity came from Nigeria, the Czech Republic, and even as far away as New Zealand. Their ambassadors had the courage to call the genocide by its rightful name and resist political pressure from more powerful countries to hide the truth. Ambassador Ibrahim Gambari of Nigeria and the Czech ambassador are here with us today, and we applaud you. Even in countries where government policy was on the wrong side of history, both during the genocide and even afterwards, there were always individuals who stood out for their honesty and humanity. We shall always be grateful. We also appreciate the tangible support we have received from partners beyond our continent over the past 30 years. In Europe, the United States, Asia, and many international organizations and philanthropies. A notable example of solidarity came to us from South Africa, one among many. Indeed, the entire arc of our continent's hopes and agonies could be seen in those few months of 1994. As South Africa ended apartheid and elected Nelson Mandela president, in Rwanda, the last genocide of the 20th century was being carried out. The new South Africa paid for Cuban doctors to help rebuild our shattered health system and opened up its universities to Rwandan students, paying only local fees. Among the hundreds of students who benefited from South Africa's generosity, some were orphaned survivors, others were the children of perpetrators, and many were neither. Most have gone on to become leaders in our country in different fields. Today, they live a completely new life. What lessons have really been learned about the nature of genocide and the value of life? I want to share a personal story, which I usually keep to myself. My cousin, in fact, a sister, Florence. Worked for the United Nations Development Program in Rwanda for more than 15 years. After the genocide started, she was trapped in her house near the Camp Kigali Army Barracks with her niece and other children and neighbors, around a dozen people in total. The telephone in Francis' house still worked, and I called her several times using my satellite phone. Each time we spoke, she was more desperate. But our forces could not reach the area. When the commander of the UN peacekeeping mission, General Dallaire, visited me where I was in Mulindi, I asked him to rescue Florence. He said he would try. The last time I talked to her, I asked her if anyone had come. She said no, and started crying. Then she said, "Paul, you should stop trying to save us. We don't want to live anymore anyway." I quickly understood what she was saying, and she hung up. At that time, I had a very strong heart, but it weakened a bit because I understood what she was trying to tell me. On the morning of May 16th, following a month of torture, they were all killed, except for one niece who managed to escape, and thanks to a good neighbor. It later emerged that a Rwandan working at the UNDP betrayed his Tutsi colleagues to the killers. Witnesses remember him celebrating Florence's murder the night after the attack. He continued his career with the United Nations for many years, even after evidence implicating him emerged. He's still a free man, now living in France. I asked General Dallaire what happened. He said that his soldiers encountered a militia roadblock near the house, and so they turned back just like that. Meanwhile, he conveyed to me an order from the United States ambassador to protect diplomats and foreign civilians evacuating from or by road to Burundi from attack by the militias. These two things happened same time. I do not need to be instructed to do something that goes without saying. That's what I was going to do. But the militias ran away, or rather peacekeepers ran away from militias, were manning a roadblock. I do not blame General Dallaire. He's a good man who did the best that could be done in the worst conditions imaginable, and who has consistently borne witness to the truth despite the personal cost. Nevertheless, in the contrast between the two cases, I took note of the value that is attached to different shades of life. In 1994, all Tutsi were supposed to be completely exterminated once and for all, because the killings that had forced me and hundreds of thousands of others into exile 3 decades before had not been sufficiently thorough. That is why even babies were systematically murdered so they would not grow up to become fighters. Rwandans will never understand why any country would remain intentionally vague about who was targeted in the genocide. I don't understand it. Such ambiguity is in fact a form of denial which is a crime in and of itself, and Rwanda will always challenge it. When the genocide of they conducted hundreds of cross-border terrorist attacks inside Rwanda over the next 5 years, targeting not only survivors, but also other Rwandans who had refused to go into exile, claiming thousands more lives. The remnants of those forces are still in eastern Congo today, where they enjoy state support in full view of the United Nations peacekeepers, their objectives have not changed. And the only reason this group today known as FDLR, has not been disbanded is because their continued existence serves some unspoken interest. As a result, hundreds of thousands of Congolese Tutsi refugees live here in our country, in Rwanda, and beyond, completely forgotten, and no program of action for their safe return. Have we really learned any lessons? We see too many actors, even some from Africa, getting directly involved as tribal politics is given renewed prominence and ethnic cleansing is prepared and practiced. What has happened to us? Is this the Africa we want to live in? Is this the kind of world we want? Rwanda's tragedy is a warning. The process of division and extremism, which leads to genocide, can happen anywhere if left unchecked. Throughout history, survivors of mass atrocities are always expected to be quiet, to censor themselves, or else be erased and even blamed for their own misfortune. Their testimony is living evidence of complicity, and it unsettles the fictions which comfort the enablers and the bystanders. The more Rwanda takes full responsibility for its own safety and dignity, the more intensely the established truth about the genocide is questioned and revised. Over time, in the media controlled by the powerful in the world, in this world, victims are rebranded as villains. And even this very moment of commemoration is derived as a mere political tactic. It is not. It never has been. Our reaction to such a hypocrisy is pure disgust. We commemorate because those lives mattered to us. Rwandans cannot afford to be indifferent to root causes of genocide. We will always pay maximum attention, even if we are alone. But what we are seeking is solidarity and partnership to recognize and confront these phenomena. I'll tell you another story. One night, in the later days of the genocide, I received a surprise visit past midnight from General Dallaire. He brought a written message of which I still have a copy from the French general commanding the force that France had just deployed in the western part of our country. That operation took place. The message said that we would pay a heavy price, meaning those of us, the RPF, if our forces dared to try to capture the town of Butare, that is in southern part of our country. So, and General Dallaire gave me additional advice. He said, in fact, he warned me. He said that the French had attacked helicopters and all kinds of arms. Every kind of heavy weapon you can imagine. And therefore, we are prepared to use them against us if we did not comply. I asked Dallaire, I asked him whether French soldiers bleed the same way ours do. I asked him whether we have blood in our bodies. Then I thanked him and told him that he should just go and have rest and sleep, and have his sleep. After giving after informing the French that our response would follow. And it did. I immediately radioed the commander of the forces that were actually in that direction, in that area. Is called Fred Ibingira. And told him to get ready to move and move to fight. And we began rebuilding. we did not have the kind of arms that were being used to threaten us. But I reminded some people that this is our land, this is our country. Those who bleed will bleed over it. We had lost all fear. Each challenge or indignity just made us stronger. After the genocide, we faced the puzzle of how to prevent it from recurring. There were three broad lessons we learned as a result of our experience. First, only we as Rwandans and Africans can give full value to our lives. After all, we cannot ask others to value African lives more highly than we ourselves do. That is the root of our duty to preserve memory and tell our history as we lived it. Second, never wait for rescue or ask for permission to do what is right to protect people. And that's why some people must be joking when they threaten us with all kinds of things and they don't know what they're talking about. But in any case, that's why Rwanda participates proudly in peacekeeping operations today and also extends assistance to African brothers and sisters bilaterally when asked. Third, stand firm against the politics of ethnic populism in any form. Genocide is populism in its purified form, because the causes are political. The remedies must be as well. For that reason, our politics is not organized on the basis of ethnicity or religion, and it never will be again. The life of my generation has been a recurring cycle of genocidal violence in 30-year intervals. From the early 1960s to 1994, to the signs we see in our region today in 2024. Only a new generation of young people have the ability to renew and redeem a nation after genocide. Our job was to provide the space and the tools for them to break the cycle. And they have. What gives us hope and confidence are the children we saw in the performance area, or the youth who created the tradition of Walk to Remember that will occur later today. Nearly 3/4 of Rwandans today are under age 35. They either have no memory of the genocide or were not yet born. Our youth are the guardians of our future. And the foundation of our unity, with a mindset that is totally different from the generation before. Today, it is all Rwandans who have conquered fear. Nothing can be worse than what we have already experienced. This is a nation of 14 million people who are ready to confront any attempt to take us backwards. The Rwandan story shows how much power human beings have within them. Whatever power you do have, you might as well use it to tell the truth and do what is right. During the genocide, people were sometimes given the option of paying for a less painful death. There is another story I learned about at the time, which always sticks in my mind, about a woman at a roadblock in her final moments. She left us a lesson that even every African should live by. Choice is what life we want to live. Our people will never, and I mean never, be left for dead again. I thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for these words of truth and reminding us that we will always stand up against primitive politics. Now, distinguished guests, as we are coming to the end of this ceremony, We are going to hear the last musical interlude, which will be performed by Ruti Joël, Mani Martin, Bukuru Christian, Aline Saano, Nel Ngabo, and Kenny Mirasano, to reinterpret a song by the late Cyprien Rugamba, who was killed during the genocide. The song is called Murumve Twana Twanyi.
Murumve twana twanjye n'abarazurukundo murarugira intego mwese aho mujya hose rubabe rumutango mwizuba rubaraha ngarama wari nyamijoro muzabona ibibagora bizaka gutambamira urwo rukundo murabe maso hatagira umwanzu bacamo icyanzu murakomeze mutwaze ntabwo nzabahana nzagumana namwe nsimbura ibibarwanya wa mwanzi w'icyatwa ubagarura mu cyaha nzamukubitija njamwimure muhumure naratsinze nemekuru ntihagire ikibaka murizihirane cyane mumenye kunda n'umwanya wanjye ntibaguhinda kandi umusanga ntukabikangwe ujye umpamagara nanjye nze tujye tujyana niyashiri n'insazi ururumure kirishibaka
abahanzi barakoze reka twongere tubashimira abaririmbye bose kubera ko
We thank the artists.
batugaragarije ko uko byagenda kose ubuzima
They've just clarified that no matter what happens, life goes on generation after generation, as they've been performing the songs by the singers who are no longer with us. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic, honorable dignitaries, Rwandans, and all of those following, we thank you once again for being with us in this function as we start the week of remembrance as we commemorate the genocide against Tutsis. Kwibuka activities will continue for the next 100 days, so please stand by the survivors of the genocide against the Tutsis. Let's keep remembering as we rebuild. Thank you very much.
We have come to the end of the ceremony. We thank you all for being with us and for standing by us on this important occasion as we honor those we lost those who survived, those who saved lives, and those who fought and continue to fight for the country we have today. As we close this ceremony, marking the start of the 30th commemoration, we please ask that we continue to remember, unite, and renew. Please remain in your place as the heads of states and delegated officials depart.